Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Commission Breath. Brandon Love and Tom Moffat here. And today we're going to give you a little update on where things are at. So, we're going to dive into what's going on with social media and what we've changed and tweaked there and a different stance we have, as well as approaching FAs, financial advisors, and kind of the impact it's had on our business. And the last thing we're going to touch on is just getting lean. So, how we are cutting costs and getting a little bit more structured going into the new year.
Yeah, it's been a bit, man. It's been a bit since we've kind of had a dual podcast talking about some of the updates in our life, our business. So we figured, why don't we do kind of like a multi-topic episode and just kind of update things? So why don't we start with social? Well, there's been quite a bit of a change to social. I mean, we're almost non-existent on social. We're still present, but it's not really a main focus of ours. Before we were just slave driving ourselves trying to post content for Canadian Mortgage Guide, which was our consumer facing podcast, and also for you guys for Commission Breath and everything else we were doing on Instagram, DMs, and all of that. It was just becoming very time consuming. And I do believe in social media long term, but at the end of the day, I'm still a strong believer in creating referral based relationships for more business. And I'll stand by that 100%. I think it's way more effective than social media. A lot of you are probably going to hate me for saying that, but I think social media is kind of that. I don't even want to say shiny object, but it's something everyone's kind of talking about and focusing on, but they're forgetting the grassroots of how to build up your foundation.
For sure, and that's been my stance since day one, so I'm really happy to see you there with me. I think social's great when someone looks for you. They don't go to your website, they don't have business cards or things like that anymore. They hop on Instagram, they hop on Facebook, they type in your name, and they just want to see that you're current, sort of what you look like, that you're not a total freak. Or if you are a total freak, that you're their kind of freak. And really that's what you need to have up there. You don't need to have a post a day, you don't need to have a ton of content. I think a lot of people with really aggressive social media kind of marketing strategies who say they get all their business from social media. You get 4 or 5 glasses of wine in them. The truth comes out, and like maybe it's 10 to 20% of their business actually comes from social.
Yeah, like 10 to 20%, man, that's very little. Like, why wouldn't you just focus all your efforts on the 70 or 80% of business that you get from referral partners? Like, that's where my head goes with it. And I still do believe you need to be present on social media, but it doesn't have to be a thing you're doing on a daily basis. My mindset has always kind of switched back and forth, but I've always believed that the foundation comes from the relationships you build in your business. And the social media is kind of that cherry on top. And there's some guys out there that have built their leads through DMs. So I'm not really kind of including that in this conversation because that's really outbound. You're creating conversations versus when I'm talking about social media, I'm talking about like posting content and being present on there, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, whatever your jam is. I think it's just something you might want to take a step back, throttle down a bit, and maybe just start booking more calls with realtors or wealth partners and have more of those relationships going.
Yeah, I think as long as you do the swap, like I find a pattern I see a lot, and I've been guilty of this too. So I'm not just criticizing other people, is you like make a really nice Instagram video or like social media post, and it takes you an hour to do, and then you post it and you feel like you've accomplished something for the day. But if you had actually swapped that time and done like a bunch of calls, you would get way more impact on your business from doing
Oh
the
yeah.
calls. The key thing is you actually have to do the swap. If you just stop social, but you don't input something else there, then you're just doing nothing now, which obviously is not a better strategy.
Yeah, like the way I look at Instagram now is most people in our age bracket, they're on Instagram. So like that's kind of my main platform to show that I have a presence. And when you go to the most recent video, they may have changed it now, but whenever I go to the video on someone's profile, I believe it doesn't even show the date it was posted. So really like my last video was probably 2 months ago. I mean, I probably won't post one for a while. And it is what it is. I've got 3,000 followers. I think that's enough to show I'm present, I'm alive, I have a social presence. So if clients go to my profile, they see my past videos, I think building up that library of content is important to show your presence there. But then after that, maybe it's just this slower ongoing thing that you kind of show up here and there and then put all your effort in other aspects of the biz.
So you're saying build the foundation and then kind of take a step back.
Yeah, I am for sure. I still think you can build a business without doing it. I just think having that foundation is important for when both clients, leads, and referral partners search you. I think having that there just helps solidify and maybe contributes to a higher percentage of conversion.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm always curious on that because, like, obviously, we've had calls for people who are thinking of coming to Tango, and some of them are like 50 to $150 million producers, and they have no social media presence at
I
all,
love
and they're
those
just like
people,
out
man.
there killing deals. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this is sick. Like, your life seems so cool because you have no online presence. You wouldn't even know anything about them. Like the one guy we were talking to, we thought he was like a rookie, and we're like, hey, we don't have a good rookie
Yeah.
program. You should go check this out. And he's like, yeah, I did like 150 million last year. We're like, what? Okay, we're
Yeah, and he had
idiots.
2 reviews. I was like,
Yeah.
"That is sick, man." I love seeing that, and the one thing I will say about social, though, from our experience doing Canadian Mortgage Guide and Commission Breath, like, there were so many hours put into recording videos that I feel like it's helped my communication in different aspects, whether it's video content or just having a conversation with someone. I feel like it has helped in that regard, and, like, if I were to really focus in on social, it would just be podcasting and YouTube and have, like, the hybrid version where you're doing a video podcast like we're doing here, but on the consumer side. Like, exactly what we were doing with Canadian Mortgage Guide. That's all I would do because actually, I don't even think I told you this, man, but yesterday I had a Calendly notification come in, and that was through our podcast. Someone just booked a call today for a discovery call, and that was through our podcast. I don't know if I told you that.
Nice. No, you didn't.
Yeah, it's like we pull away from it and then these things happen. You're like, it's tempting to go back to it. But then you just look at like your past leads and booked calls from referral partners, and it's like, okay, I see where my effort should go.
Yeah, and for those of you listening who don't know this, we kinda, like, silently killed Canadian Mortgage Guide. It still exists and is on YouTube if you searched it, but we're not cranking out any more content. And the reason being that just for what we just shared, we believe our focus and energy is best spent elsewhere. And for us right now, like our goal is to really dramatically scale our book of business personally, but then also to optimize and give the best strategies for Tango agents and brokers to scale their businesses. So we're getting rid of anything that doesn't work. We're like killing it and we're implementing only things that we get the best results from.
And that's not to say it wasn't working. I actually do think it was working for the amount of time you put into it. I think long term, it would pan out to be a very good thing. And that's why I'm hesitant to say social media is useless because I think it's this big engine that you just have to build up over time. And then once it's cooking, you're actually getting leads coming in while you sleep, essentially, when it comes to YouTube and podcasting. Like to give you two example or one example, is Ron Butler, Angry Mortgage. That guy gets a shit ton of leads through his podcast. And he's actually a marketing genius, man. You wouldn't really think of him as a marketing genius, but he is. Like what he's doing with the Angry Mortgage Guide or Angry Mortgage, whatever he calls it. I know he's getting a lot
Yeah.
of leads through that.
Yeah, well, he just shit on everyone else, right? And then they're like, "Oh, I'll go with the
True.
anti-hero
Yeah.
kinda guy." So,
Yeah. Fuck the brokers.
you yeah, fuck everyone else except for come to me. So, it is what it is. I think there's something there, but it's not enough, and
Yes.
time is better spent elsewhere.
Yep. Absolutely. You can still crush it in this business being that kind of silent nomad in the background.
Yeah, yeah. So let's pivot to what we've shifted the focus on, which you've done a lot this week. You've had huge success with it, and well, it's been a couple weeks now, but you've had huge success comparatively to old style realtor only. So why don't you jump into that, Tom?
Yeah, so I wanted to branch out to not just having realtor partners as referral partners. I've always wanted to expand out to financial advisors. And it's been in the background for quite a while, like dating all the way back to, I want to say January of 2023, you and I at the mastermind like we went through a whole like financial advisor strategy and revamped our four slide, made sure it was like tailored to financial advisors. And I never got around to doing it. I could use all the excuses in the world, but it just never happened. And there was like two times after that where I'm like, this is the time I'm going to do it. I'm finally going to do it. And I never got around to it. But this is the time I actually started approaching and booking meetings with financial advisors. And that was, I started last week. And my approach was, I'm going to spend the least amount of time to get these appointments and I'm going to do it the lazy way. And it sprung from a quick conversation you and I had. I forget what we were talking about, but we're just like, hey, like, why don't we go on LinkedIn and try connecting with financial advisors through that way? So I started doing that over the phone with you. And I'm like, well, when I press the connect button, like there's a box that pops up when you press connect. There's only so much text you can put in there as a message to that person. So I'm like, well, I'm going to connect with them here. Instead of putting in a message there, I'm actually going to find their email and email them. So my approach was I wanted to create that triangle of trust. I had no idea who these financial advisors were, but they were in Burlington in my market. So I'm like, okay, that's going to be my triangle of trust. It's pretty weak, but we'll see what happens. So I created the email template and I just connected with them through saying, like, hey, I saw we have a couple connections here on LinkedIn. We're in the Burlington area. Just looking to connect with a financial advisor, see if there's anything we can do to help each other out in our businesses. Something very simple like that. I sent out 9 emails, 4 responded expressing wanting to book. I booked 3 of them. One, we're still going back and forth on times. But yeah, I've done 3 out of the 4.
Nice. Okay, so 3 out of 9 conversion of meeting, so, like,
Yeah.
33.3 continued. That's a huge
Well, most
success
likely
rate, like, if
4. Like, let's call it
yeah.
4 because like I will book that fourth.
So that's a huge conversion rate if you think back to the time of, like, reaching out to realtors and trying to set up that initial wave of conversations. I remember sometimes you'd do, like, 10 calls and you might not get one of them to want to meet with you. So,
Yeah, and that's a phone call. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like,
it's a
if I
lot
called
harder.
them, it would probably be more. It'd probably be higher if I called them, but I just wanted to do it super simple and lazy, and I just did email, and I was actually shocked at the conversion rate on it, and the meetings themselves have been going really well. It's very early on, like, I just had a meeting 2 meetings yesterday and 1 on last Friday. So super early on, but the meetings themselves, it's a different world, man, in terms of, like, the connection, and it's not a better or worse thing. I just see more opportunity with the financial advisors because of the different branching and opportunities within creating that relationship. And to give you an example of that, like if you have an accountant partner and if you connect them with that financial advisor, an accountant to a financial advisor is like a realtor to us. That's like one of their main lead sources. So if you can connect that financial advisor with one of your accountant partners, they'll love you. And those are different ways where you can help build their business. And that's the sort of things I'm doing here. So it's more like I'm going deeper with a smaller list of FAs versus going wide with a big list of realtors.
Mhm. I was gonna ask you that. Do you have, like, an end game on the total amount of FAs? Like, because obviously you don't have enough runway to see when the inflection point of when this starts paying off is. So are you just gonna keep booking them until you see results sort of thing?
Yeah, I still don't know the answer to that because I did do 2 meetings back in the day with 2 others. So I have 5 that I've met with and had a meeting with, and I think, like, I probably wouldn't go past 10. I'll probably go up to 10, and I just wanna keep it at that, go deeper. A lot of them like the in-person lunches and meetings, so I'm actually doing a 2-event meeting with them. So I did my first one was in person with one of them, the other 2 were virtual. The other 2 that were virtual, I've already scheduled out an in-person lunch with those 2. So I'm gonna do a two-pronged approach, and then from there, yeah, just go deeper with the strategy, and I'm trying to feed leads to them, and that's why I don't wanna go past 10 because I think if I go past 10, it's gonna be hard to really serve them those leads if I have more than 10 because I could only get so many leads through my client journey, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to do it because you can also, like, go back to the idea of having your starting lineup. So you've got your 10 skaters now, or soccer team's probably a better analogy for this one. But if someone's a dud, you just drop them off and you can swap them out with someone else. You have your top 10. And then it's also kind of a nice thing if you're meeting with an FA, you can say, because they might ask, hey, how many other people are you working with? You can say, hey, I work across Ontario, but I have 10 FAs that I have relationships with, and we never
Yeah, that's a
exceed
good
that.
point. Yeah, because I actually didn't think about that early on that when you're servicing a financial advisor, a lot of it is in person when they're meeting with their clients. So for me to refer a financial advisor to one of my clients, it would make more sense for them to be in the city that they're in. And because
Mhm.
you and I, we have business all over Ontario, yeah, it's a good point. I should probably strategically partner up with financial advisors in the main cities that we do business in.
Yeah, I would say, like, you kinda wanna focus on cities we do business in, obviously, but then also, like, some cities we do business in, you might not want to get a ton of deals from, just from a size perspective, and, like, that relationship might be too much to nurture for what you're looking to do. So, like, I might even go, like, "Hey, I wanna get more deals immediate GTA just for what I have bandwidth from a number of files I can work on, and I'm gonna focus there, and then I'll go to the secondary markets as need be."
Yeah, that's a good point. And so you can kind of target those bigger mortgage size markets too.
Mhm.
One thing I'm learning with them is that some of them are more focused on the asset side of things. So helping clients with investments. And then the other half, they do still accept insurance referrals. So one way that I'm generating referrals through my client journey is through pitching MPP and having pre sold insurance and sending them to the FA for more options other than just MPP. But the one FA I met with, she doesn't care about the insurance referrals. So it's going to be very hard to feed her business because her minimum threshold is a client that has 500K in assets, which you don't always come across, right? So that's what I'm learning is trying to really fine tune who I'm reaching out to, who has the best net for the amount of clients they want coming in. So that was kind of a learning curve for me.
I think that's the dream though, is a person who has that filter on already. So someone has 500,000 in assets. You're like, okay, I can use a net worth program all day for these people. I would just pitch them. This is how we use net worth programs.
Yeah, that's what I was pitching, man. And then she's like, "Well, it's actually not just clients that I work with that are rich per se and have a lot of investments. It's more so the people that are retired and that's their retirement funds. So it's not so much that they're just wealthy, it's just they need someone to manage their money in retirement." And then in my
Mhm.
head, ding, 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 reverse mortgages. So I started talking about that, and one of them seemed pretty open to looking for opportunities there.
Yeah, and you can use the net worth program with retired people too. I do that all the time. I have one guy, we've used the net worth program for him on like 3 different purchases now. It just keeps
Yeah.
rinsing and repeating. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
fantastic.
exactly. Yeah, it's key, man. And that's the cool thing too is they understand money. Not that realtors don't, but they understand like strategy. So a lot of them are actually pretty well versed with the mortgage features. And it's really cool because one of them even said like it's not all about rate. There's other features in the mortgage like porting. And I help my clients understand that by collecting their mortgage statements during our calls. And I'm like, man, that's unreal. I didn't pitch the mortgage monitor program at that time. That's for a future date. But I marked that down. I'm like, okay, for sure, this is a good fit to pitch her the mortgage monitor program because she's already collecting mortgage statements from her clients.
For sure, and for those of you listening who don't know this, most FAs have, like, a requirement to do an annual review with clients. We offer an annual review as just like a feature of the product that we offer, but you can really tie in your review with theirs so that they're getting, like, a whole holistic outlook of their financial picture, and it makes it really sticky for them with that FA, and then also for using your services when it comes time for renewal, purchase, buy, sell, etcetera.
Yeah, that's what I've spent time in my business the last 2 weeks, like going through the client journey and embedding a process for booking the mortgage review calls because I've always offered it to clients, but I never had an actual system on booking it. So you know this, Brandon, but we were talking about how to seamlessly embed that in the client journey. So that way, when I have these annual review calls, that's where I look for the opportunities to refer them off to these wealth partners that I've connected with. So, for example, if you're my client and we have this review call in the next week, I'm looking for ways to refer them to a financial advisor for insurance or for investment purposes or an accountant if they need one, even for home insurance. Like these are the avenues I'm taking it. And the one way that I'm guaranteeing that I have these calls booked is through the time that I actually get their mortgage for them. So we went back and forth as to when we should do this in the client journey. And we both agreed that embedding a review call scheduled while it's through the actual mortgage approval, we're like, that's a little too early to do that. So now we're waiting until all the conditions have been satisfied. We call it all conditions met, but for all of you, you probably call it broker complete. So when we're broker complete, we then schedule out a year from then in the Calendly already done. They're going to see it in their calendar that they have a call with us in the year from now. So it's already scheduled.
Yeah, that's very sticky there. Another thing I was just thinking as you were saying all that is like if you can get someone to an FA early in the process, they're typically independent from like the banks and stuff. So you have your first home savings account if they can open that, your RRSPs, anything there, you're not risking the client going into the branch to move those funds and getting poached by a mortgage rep in branch. So it also gives a little layer of insulation for your portfolio that way as well.
Yeah, very true. They don't like the banks. I asked all of them this question: "What's the biggest pain point in your business?" And he said, "The banks." And I'm like, "Okay, can you elaborate?" He's like, "Yeah, like I don't like when the banks start working with our clients because they try to steal them." And we knew this because like that's one of our pitches is the asset protection plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thought that was pretty cool. It was validating what I was going to be pitching him on the next meeting.
Yeah, for sure. Because like, it's the same as us, you're gonna get all your work taken from you and then their commission base as well. So you're in a
Yeah.
similar boat that way. You're kind of paddling in the same direction. It makes sense from a partnership perspective. And I think a lot of people ignore it because they just like don't see how it jives up. But there's a lot of value adds and things you can offer them. And I think it's definitely worth exploring.
Yeah, and the last note I'll say on FAs, first of all, I'm probably going to do more episodes on this because this is very new to me and kind of excited to showcase my journey through it. But I feel like the competition is much lower for us, like partnering with an FA, because first of all, they're more receptive to meeting with us because there's not as many mortgage brokers calling them. Second of all, I was actually surprised that all of them had a mortgage partner, but it didn't seem like it was super sticky for all of them. And the reason why I say that is I feel like yeah, they were partnered up, but they weren't really that dedicated to that person. And 10 times out of 10, those brokers were not sending them leads. And that's what I'm doing here is I want to feed more business to the FAs. So if you can figure out a way in your process to feed them leads, then you're not going anywhere. You'll be the number one for them.
hmm Yeah, I think you might find it hard to send them leads consistently, but as long as you spread the love and you have a little bit of drip there, it's probably going to be enough to keep the relationships
Yeah.
going.
We shall see how often it comes. Yeah.
For sure. All right, we're going to wrap it up today just talking about another big change we're making in our business, and that is getting really lean. So, back when I had a farm, I read this book called The Lean Farm, followed basically like the Japanese approach to Toyota of reducing waste and eliminating waste in systems. And I think they call it Muda, and I was really efficient on my farm. I cut my hours way down. I cut like my spending way down. And I realized recently that I've done this with time in the mortgage business, but not with finance. And coming into a challenging time this year was a little bit lighter on commissions, paid on the 3-year product, losing more deals to the banks, that kind of thing. It was an opportunity to look at some of these costs. So, one thing we've done is immediately in moving to Tango, Tango covers E&O for everyone and covers credit pulls. So that was a huge expense wiped off the plate. That kind of got my mind thinking of what else we could replace. So we're just going through all of our expenses and we are like relentlessly auditing them. So anything that we don't use enough or don't find enough value from, we're cutting it.
What is another thing that you cut in your business? Like, what was your thought process on cutting this one expense? You can give us an example.
Okay, I'll give you an example. This might ruffle some feathers, but like going into next year, we're not going to be renewing our subscription for any of the CRMs.
Yeah.
That's one right there. The Canadian Mortgage Guide podcast that cost us some
Yeah.
money to keep running wasn't enough. So we cut that. I don't know. I bet you if we read through our texts back and forth to each other right now, we're pretty relentless on like, is this high value or is this
Oh,
low
yeah.
value? And we're just chopping the waste. And some of the stuff we might add back. We might cut something and be like, "Ah, actually, that
Yeah,
was,
we probably go too hardcore on some of
yeah,
it. Dude, it's not even expenses all the time. I like to look at it as like bandwidth. Like, how much
yeah,
bandwidth is this thing taking up? Is it worth it? To me, that was the reson why we did CMG. It wasn't so much the cost, but the cost is nice that it has been reduced for sure. I think for me, the biggest one was credit pulls and the CRM. There wasn't a huge expense there, but I think for me, that one was more so just decluttering. Our files were just in a lot of different places. And we were chatting before we recorded this. I just revamped my master tracker sheet, like where I track everything. I'm just including more mortgage information in there now. And I just want everything in one place.
yeah, you're a freak in the sheets, so you don't need to have a secondary CRM. Just use that spreadsheet. But like to that point, like on bandwidth, like doing the toggle tracker for time, and like we got invited to an event, and it sounds like a lot of fun. It's in Jamaica, but it was going to cost us a little bit of money to go down there. And we're like, hey, it's going to pull us away from our actual business for 4 days. We'll probably learn something and meet some people to grow both our business and Tango as a brokerage. But like our time is better spent in the business, just actually sitting behind the desk, working the phone. So we just said no. Doing things like that is not easy at the time because you feel like you're leaving something on the table, but you're getting so much more back in executing simple systems, simple strategies that aren't expensive, and you just rinse and repeat over and over again.
You can also go too far on the other side. Like if you're focusing too much time on auditing your expenses and your business, then I think there's that fine line. Because if you're spending too much time there, then you're also sacrificing the amount of time you're putting in your efforts to find more business. So I was too far on the finding the business side of things and neglecting the expenses. And now I feel like I'm at a happy medium after reviewing our expenses together this year and cutting down on that. Now I'm just hard on the prospecting. And like both of us this year, our prospecting has been god awful for the most part. We've just been maintaining our main book of business. But now I feel like we're in a better space after auditing our business, seeing where the leaks are. And now we're like, full board, like, let's go. Let's get some more leads coming in.
Exactly. You don't wanna get to the point where you're like a coupon clipper kind of person being like, "Oh, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna pay for Loom because it cost me $19 a month," like that kind of thing. Like, don't go that far. But, like, some stuff you probably have that you're just wasting your business, and getting rid of it frees up the money and the time and the bandwidth to focus on other things. And then the key piece is, like, we're gonna pour a bunch of gasoline on the business right now. So we're gonna get a ton of revenue where both of us kind of put our backs against the wall with starting a new business, buying new properties where we need to earn right now. And I personally love the feeling because it feels like being back day one. But we need sales right now, and it's hugely motivating to need to drum up a certain amount of cash in a certain amount of time to meet these deadlines. And it just feels good to go back to like grassroots strategies, very bare bones systems, and just work it.
Yeah, it does. And I think part of it too is there seems to be something in the air. I don't know if it's our own mindset, but I feel like the tide is turning in our favor in the broker side. I think a lot of that might be because we're able to offer more options on a competitive side. Like, for example, 5 year variable, 3 year fixed, 5 year variable. They're still both really good options, but now we can offer the 5 year variable and be more competitive that way as well. So I think that that's another edge that we have and another proponent as to why we're not losing as much business too.
Yeah, I think we've had a big mindset shift. I touched on that last episode. Also, like we're kind of operating on like the you make your market sort of mindset. So we're finding deals, we're finding opportunities. We're not focused on the stuff we can't control. A deal gets lost, we move on from it. Like we have like a half a day kind of cursing ourselves, have a beer, move on. That kind of mindset's really serving our business, and the energy in the brokerage, I think, also is very much
Yeah.
aligned with that. So we don't have a big complaining culture within our brokerage. Everyone's kind of positive and cranking out tons of high quality work, which is nice. So it's just been fun that way.
Yeah, that's a great point too. I think everyone has that same mindset in just trying to improve their business and they're not down and out worrying about the headlines and what everyone else is talking about in some of the Facebook groups. They're just putting their head down and working.
100%. So, quick recap for you guys. Social media, there's a point to it, but don't make it the sole focus. I think as a takeaway, build that foundation and then just use it as your resume, more or less. FA partners, huge avenue that you should pursue if you're not already pursuing. If you have a solid book of realtors right now, I would suggest adding that as a layer. And then finally, get lean. Look for opportunities to cut costs in your business. If you're looking to save on credit pulls and E&O, reach out to us and we can talk to you about Tango and see if it's a fit for you.
Before we sign off here, just a big thank you to JA Mortgages who wrote us a review on Apple Podcasts. Very much appreciated. Very kind words. Thank you very much. Anyone listening that wants to do the same thing, please give us a 5-star rating and review. We do this for free, so we'd be much appreciated.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.